Okay, everybody, we're going to talk a little bit more about the stupid Mississippi election. Not necessarily about the election itself, because it doesn't really matter, because they just elected somebody who is, just an average type of person from, that type of race and electoral race, sorry. I don't think that Cindy Hyde-Smith is going to be much of a interesting senator. I don't know anything about her, and I don't think she was very interesting at all. I think she was lucky to get elected, but I think it's also funny that people are now trying to boycott Mississippi because of it, which we'll show you some more of that. But maybe not in this video. But here is some reaction, and the guy on the left is actually, he lives in my area. I used to live right behind his church in an apartment building. So his name is Pastor Scott. So here we go.
I'm going to ask you the question, is there room for both?
Well, again, I think if she had just...
And that she made a mistake. I'm going to ask you the question, is there room for both?
Well, again, I think if she had just made one gaffe regarding race, I would...
I need a quick yes or no.
I would say no.
All right. I want to go back to you now, Pastor Scott, to get your...
So they're talking about the comment where she said she wants to attend a public hanging. And this guy, he's so bent out of shape about it that he's laughing about it on camera. So if it was such a serious problem, then why is it so funny? I thought it was, then maybe it is kind of funny. Maybe this is a stupid joke. Maybe nobody really cares about racism. Maybe she's just a stupid idiot and you don't even know how to, instead of calling people out for being dumbasses, you'd rather portray them as evil, racist bigots. Maybe that's really the problem.
Response.
Let me say this. Once again, this hypersensitivity towards racism is prevalent in all of these recent elections. Ron DeSantis said the term monkey up, and all of a sudden, he's talking about black people. She said, I would attend a public hanging. We're talking about black people. Anything that's said by these candidates is not precisely and necessarily referring to black people. We're taking it that way, and we're taking it that way simply for political purposes. If it wasn't election time and that was said, the offense wouldn't be there. And so we're trying to use any gaffe by hyper scrutinizing everything that comes out of these candidates' mouth to see if there's something that we can say is racist so we can use it to try to win an election. That's simply what the Dems playbook is. It's been their playbook. Every 4 years, it's pin the racist on the Republican. That's what they do. That's the game plan, but it's not working.
Does it move us forward, Pastor?
We can move forward. You know why? Because America is getting tired of it on both sides. Americans are not stupid. We have common sense. We can see when someone is trying to take something and use it for political purposes. It's not flying. That's why it doesn't have the traction now that they wanted to have. Michael Eric Dyson and these guys like that, they're race baiters. If we achieve racial harmony in this country, those guys would be...
So this Jason Nickel guy is laughing on camera because the truth of the matter is, what were they expecting? That they could label a candidate racist over a comment? Now, if they really wanted to win a race in Mississippi, the Democrats, then they should have offered a candidate that actually has something that would change something in Mississippi. But it's the Senate, first of all. So, really what they have to do is win a governor's race. That's really my opinion. But instead, they're trying to win a Senate race because when you elect a new senator, he's basically a puppet of the top leadership. You can see that. It's obvious from the other Senate race from last year in Alabama, Doug Jones. He hasn't been very special. He hasn't been especially progressive in his agenda, if you're a progressive. And he hasn't been particularly representative of Alabama. He's been representative of the Senate Democratic leadership, people like Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer. He doesn't really have his own agenda, so to speak, because he needs to be able to get on the committees that he finds are more towards his needs, his personal needs.
Out of business. I want to send him a box of cheese to go with that wine that they do every time a black candidate loses an election. It's all this wine.
Professor.
We need to stop that.
You're silent.
Yeah, no, I think, Reverend, or excuse me, Pastor Scott has a legacy as well. The legacy of the Mississippi State Sovereignty Committee, black pastors who actually worked against the civil rights movement. I think that, we saw what
legacy,
you said.
brother.
That's absolutely
that's
your legacy.
So basically he's trying to say, well, you might be a pastor or whatever, but a lot of pastors worked against civil rights.
Grew up in the civil rights movement. What you read about,
well, you certainly aren't representing your past very well.
No,
you certainly aren't representing. And let me tell you something. What happened?
You're full of it. Now, how about that?
Well, here's the thing. What happened in other states in Florida?
Let me tell you something.
All right, somebody has to have the last word here. Pastor Scott,
how old are
quickly.
you, young man? How old are you, young man?
I'm experienced, and I know my.
So he's doing the Uncle Drew tactic here.
I know my history.
Let me tell you something. What you read about
you can't take things out of context.
So what you know intellectually, I know experientially, and there's a difference between experiential knowledge and intellectual knowledge.
Both.
So you can't tell me about this. I've been through it. You haven't.
I know both, my brother.
Right, Professor Nichols and Pastor Scott.
So I think this is stupid. I think Fox News ought to be ashamed of itself. This is black people fighting on TV over white politicians and whatever. And I think, in all honesty, you have to remember, okay, I think black people should be able to vote for whoever the fuck they want. If they want to vote Democrat, which they do in my city, go ahead. But we end up having a lot of these politicians end up going to jail for beating their wives. And then they get out of jail because their other politician friends write them letters. Okay, look at my video from last week. So their politician friends write them letters when their sentencing hearing comes up to get them early release, and then they come out of prison and they murder their wives. Okay, now this doesn't happen in every case. I'm not strawmanning here, but that type of thing happens when you vote for people based on solely political party. I think you should vote based on the individual, based on their political opinion. And frankly, I think it is true that nobody deserved to win in that Mississippi race. But it sure is funny when the Democrats lose. Okay, if the Republican had lost, I think it would have been kind of an embarrassment. I mean, let's not pussyfoot around, as they would say. Now, the real important thing here has nothing to do with the actual Senate seat, which is kind of, the Senate seat is basically just a bargaining chip. So it says here, Senator Kamala Harris might lose her place on the Judiciary Committee because now the Republicans have officially won 2 more seats in the Senate, which in my opinion is hilarious. It's hilarious that the Democrats want to claim that they had any sort of victory this year, when in reality they have less power in the Senate, and in the House they're just completely divided, which we'll probably have to do a different video on that maybe tomorrow. If I even have time for that. Senator Kamala Harris is at risk of losing her seat on the Judiciary Committee following the midterm elections earlier this month. According to The Hill, the California senator is the least senior Democratic member on the committee, and because Republicans actually gained Senate numbers in the midterm, in the recent midterm, she is not guaranteed to keep her seat. Harris joined the Judiciary Committee in January 2018 and has since been a powerful voice on the panel. Yeah, we'll get to that. But according to her spokeswoman, Harris is determined to stay on the panel. The Washington Post reports that Harris told Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer that she wants to stay on the committee next year. She is one of 2 black senators. So this is Essence magazine. So it's kind of it's a big black-oriented magazine. I think it's owned by like Condé Nast, this massive international conglomerate, but let's say it's a black magazine. And one of the 4 female members, Harris, so it's all about identity. It doesn't say whether these people are good members of the committee. It doesn't say whether they did anything important. It just says that they're women or they're black. Harris, who many think will run for the presidency in 2020, will also be releasing her first book, The Truths We Hold: An American Journey, in January 2019. So apparently, minority Americans are so oppressed that they can sit on the Judiciary Committee and publish books. Dear Lord, what is this country coming to? That's how oppressed they are. Negotiations between Democrats and Republicans for the committees have yet to begin. Schumer and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell will still need to negotiate these committees' size and ratios. So I personally do hope that it gets into some sort of backdoor death match between her and Mr. Farty Pants Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island. Those two, I think, are the dumbest people on the committee. And then you would probably have Cory Booker is also up there. Dianne Feinstein, of course, she's a disgrace, but she knows what she's doing, which is, she's deliberately fucking the country, but at least she knows that she's doing it, even though she's like a billion years old. So here are the greatest hits of Kamala Harris. Now, this first one is, I would say it is kind of one of the more interesting ones, and I think you have to give her credit for at least, trying to pursue a very tough line of questioning with Rod Rosenstein. Now, this is back when Democrats thought Rosenstein was basically Donald Trump's stooge and that he must be hiding something that is protecting Trump. So this is from, I believe it says June 7th, 2017.
Council on May 17th, you stated, quote, based upon the unique circumstances, the public interest requires me to place this investigation under the authority of a person who exercises a degree of independence from the normal chain of command. The order you issued along with that statement provides that 28 CFR 600.4 through 10 were applicable. Those are otherwise known as the special counsel regulations. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And it states that the special counsel...
So if you watch Kamala Harris on these committees, she basically becomes the Grand Inquisitor. She was a prosecutor. She was Attorney General of California. So this is her natural territory to be the prosecutor. But when you're on a committee, you're not supposed to be prosecuting the witness. You're actually supposed to be trying to discover facts. Now, yes, I think senators have the right to be aggressive, but at a certain point, you start to realize that they're being aggressive for the sake of the cameras as opposed to, first of all, they don't have the votes on the committee anyway for her to force Rosenstein to even consider doing what she says. And even if they did, I think he's still independent of the legislature.
Counsel, quote, shall not be subject to the day-to-day supervision of any official of the department. However, the regulations permit you, as acting Attorney General for this matter, to override Director Mueller's investigative and prosecutorial decisions under specified circumstances. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And it also provides that you may fire or remove Director Mueller under specified circumstances. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you indicated in your statement that you chose a person who exercises a degree of independence, not full independence from the normal chain of command. So my question is this. In December of 2003, then Attorney General...
So this is very important what she's going to be asking. It's basically, well, you'll see it, and I'll try to explain it after she says it.
John Ashcroft recused himself from the investigation into the leak that led to the disclosure of Valerie Plame's identity as a CIA officer. The acting Attorney General at the time was Jim Comey. He appointed a special counsel, Patrick Fitzgerald, to take over the matter. In a letter dated December 30th of 2003, Mr. Comey wrote the following to Mr. Fitzgerald, quote, I direct you to exercise the authority as special counsel independent of the supervision or control of any officer of the department. In a subsequent letter dated February 6, 2004, Mr. Comey wrote to clarify the earlier letter stating that his delegation of authority to Mr. Fitzgerald was, quote, plenary. Moreover, it said that my, quote, conferral on you of the title of special counsel in this matter should not be misunderstood to suggest that your position and authorities are defined or limited by 28 CFR Part 600. Those are the special counsel regulations we discussed. So, would you agree, Mr. Rosenstein, to provide a letter to Director Mueller, similarly, providing that Director Mueller has the authority as special counsel, quote, independent of the supervision or control of any officer of the department, and ensure that Director Mueller has the authority that is plenary and not, quote, defined or limited by the special counsel regulations.
So basically what she wanted to do was to corner Rosenstein into granting Mueller a blanket authority independent of, so Mueller could basically not be fired. He'd basically be an official of the U.S. government who could investigate literally anybody with no limitation and no supervision from anyone. That's basically, by the way, that's how, for those of you that don't know, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau operated until very recently. It's basically that she wanted a position with no accountability, a position that would be basically forever shadowing the Trump administration and attacking it and pursuing it until until they could finally bag him and put him away. And that's basically what she was asking for.
Senator, I'm very sensitive about time, and I'd like to have a very lengthy conversation and explain that all to you. I tried to do that.
Can you give me a yes or no answer,
in the
please?
closed briefing. Well, it's not a short answer, Senator.
So she asked this long question, and then she wants him to answer yes or no. And if I was him, I would have said no. I mean, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous that you would have somebody. And the fact that that happened under Bush, by the way, the Plame affair, I think, happened at the very tail end of the Bush administration. It was, to my knowledge, it wasn't as big of an issue as people made it to be, but, I wasn't especially in tune with what was going on at the time, so I'm sorry, but it just isn't the same situation because with Mueller, you're talking about a person who would be shadowing an administration throughout at least the first 4 years, if not longer, of the administration.
The answer
It is either you are willing to do that or not, as we have precedent in that regard.
But
Mr. Chairman, they should be allowed to answer the question.
it's a long question you pose, Senator, and I fully appreciate the import of your question, and I'll get to the answer. My quibble with you is Pat Fitzgerald is a very principled, very independent person. I have a lot of respect for him. Pat Fitzgerald could have been fired by the president because he was a United States attorney. Robert Mueller cannot because he's protected by those special counsel regulations. So although it's theoretically true that there are circumstances where he could be removed by the acting attorney general, which for this case at this time is me, your assurance of his independence is Robert Mueller's integrity and Andy McCabe's integrity and my integrity and those regulations.
Sir, if I may.
So he's basically saying this, that yes, he could remove from Robert Mueller any authority that he could give Robert Mueller all the authority he wanted and basically remove his own authority over Robert Mueller. But Rosenstein, as Deputy Attorney General, does not have the authority to remove the president's authority from him. So basically what Kamala Harris is asking for technically doesn't really mean much because if Trump wants to fire Bob Mueller, he legally can. He legally can do it. Okay, and if, let's say, Trump was to die in office, okay, and the investigation was to go on, or for whatever reason, let's say Trump would not be president. He would resign, or he would not run for president, but the investigation would go on. The next president, whoever it would be, let's say it would be Mike Pence, or I don't know, Mike Pence. Let's assume it's Mike Pence. Let's assume it's person X. That person could fire that special prosecutor. By the way, the special prosecutor who prosecuted Bill Clinton, for those of you that don't know, what year did his investigation wrap up? It was in 2002. What was his name? For those of you that would say Kenneth Starr, I think, left the special prosecutor office in 1998 or 1999. He was replaced by a guy named Robert Ray, and basically that was wrapped up only under President Bush. And, of course, no penalty was levied. But, yeah, they could have – that was protected at the time. Well, you're going to hear the rest. So here we go.
The greater assurance is not that you and I believe in Director Mueller's integrity, which I have no question about Mr. Mueller's integrity. It is that you would put in writing an indication based on your authority as the acting attorney general that he has full independence.
So she's basically trying to say, fuck you, I want you to do this because I don't trust that the system will be able to protect him from basically reality. Look, a special prosecutor like Robert Mueller is exactly that. It's special. So, he's given authorities that are much wider than most district attorneys in the country. In fact, Bob Mueller has expanded the scope of his investigation to crap that has nothing to do with Russia or with Donald Trump. And that's exactly so she doesn't need any of what she's asking from Rosenstein. She's basically just trying to wag her finger in the air and say, no. I will not let you control this investigation that I want to control.
In regards to the investigations that are before him, are you willing or are you not willing to give him the authority to be fully independent of your ability statutorily and legally to fire him?
He has the
Yes or no, sir?
He has the full independence that is authorized by those regulations. And
Are
Senator,
you willing to do as has been done before?
With the senator suspend, the chair is going to exercise its right to allow the witnesses to answer the question, and the committee is on notice to provide the witnesses the courtesy, which has not been extended all the way across, extend the courtesy for questions to get answered.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully,
Mr. Rosenstein,
I would point out that this witness has joked with as we all have,
The senator will
ability to
suspend.
filibuster.
Mr. Rosenstein, would you like to thoroughly answer
Thank
the
you, Mr.
question?
Chairman. Senator, I'm not joking. The truth is, I have a lot of experience with these issues, and I could speak to you for a very long time about it, and I'm sympathetic. I appreciate the 5-minute limit. That's not my limit. But the answer is, this originated, as you may know, with the independent counsel statute. And I worked for an independent counsel, and I worked in the department during the independent counsel era when independent counsels were appointed by authorization of the Senate. They were appointed by federal judges, and they had essentially the authority equivalent to the Attorney General. That statute sunsetted, and the majority of members of this body concluded that was appropriate because they did not want special independent counsels who were 100% independent of the Department of Justice. That was a determination made by the legislature. Now, I know the folks at the department who drafted this regulation under Janet Reno, and they drafted it to deal with this type of circumstance. And the idea was that there would be some circumstances where, because of unusual events, it was appropriate to appoint somebody from outside the department, not somebody like Pat Fitzgerald, who was a U.S. attorney who could be fired, but somebody from outside the department who could be trusted to conduct this investigation independently and could be given an appropriate degree of independence. Under the regulation, he has, I believe, adequate authority to conduct this investigation. And your ultimate check, Senator, is, number one, the integrity of the people involved in the investigation, but number two, the fact that if he were overruled or if he were fired, we would be required under the regulation to report to the Congress. And so I believe that's an appropriate check. And so while I realize that theoretically anybody could be fired, and so there's a potential for undermining an investigation, I am confident, Senator, that Director Mueller, Mr. McCabe.
So basically nothing was gained from here. This is typical Kamala Harris. She demands something that she knows is not necessary. So what Rosenstein was even saying was that at a certain point, I believe in the early 90s, maybe in the late 80s, this was in the I think it was after the Iran-Contra hearings, the Senate gave itself the authority to appoint a special counsel that would be completely independent. That eventually, after Bill Clinton era, they abolished it. So yeah, it's the Senate's fault that they took their own authority away to do this. That's her problem. And the Justice Department did draft those regulations on the special counsel, and it does limit the special counsel. But ultimately, the way it is today, since the Senate gave away that authority, the president can fire the special counsel. Okay? Sorry to tell you, bitch. Now, we have this one this is another gem with Jeff Sessions.
Several times this afternoon, prefaced your responses by saying, to the best of your recollection. Just on the first page of your 3 pages of written testimony, you wrote, "Nor do I recall, do not have recollection, do not remember it." So my question is, for any of your testimony today, did you refresh your memory with any written documents, be they your calendar, written correspondence, emails, notes of any sort?
I attempted to refresh my recollection, but so much of this is in a wholesale campaign of extraordinary nature that you're moving so fast that you don't keep notes. You meet people. I didn't keep notes of my conversation with the Russian ambassador at the Republican
I'd like
convention.
to just talk about what you did.
I'm just saying I didn't keep notes on most of these things, and there's nothing for me.
Will you provide this committee with the notes that you did maintain?
As appropriate, I will supply the committee with documents.
Can you please tell me what you mean when you say appropriate?
I would have to consult with lawyers in the department who know the proper procedure before disclosing documents that are held within the Department of Justice.
Attorney
And I'm
General
not able
Sessions.
to make that opinion today.
Sir, I'm sure you prepared for this hearing today, and most of the questions that have been presented to you were predictable. So my question to you is, did you then review with the lawyers of your department, if you as the top lawyer are unaware, what the law is regarding what you can share with us and what you cannot share with us, what is privileged and what is not privileged?
We discussed the basic parameters of testimony. I frankly have not discussed documentary disclosure rules.
Will you make a commitment to this committee that you will share any written correspondence, be they your calendars?
So he just answered that stupid question. Jeff Sessions is a dumbass, but what does she want from him? It's ridiculous. Will you give us your notes? I don't know if I can give you my notes. Will you give us the notes? What the fuck do you want? I don't know yet. I can't tell you because I have to check with the rest of the department. By the way, the Attorney General doesn't just get to do whatever the hell he wants. He has to comply with certain rules. Now, for those of you that are saying, whoa, why are you standing up for Jeff Sessions? I'm not standing up for Jeff Sessions, but the fact of the matter is that this was a ball-busting routine intended to guilt Jeff Sessions for meeting with the ambassador to Russia, who, by the way, visits people in the Senate all the time. So it had zero meaning. Nothing came of it. Nobody ever discovered anything important that came out of it. And this is basically what Kamala Harris does on the Judiciary Committee.
Records, notes,
Actually, this is the Intelligence Committee. So, yeah, she's going to keep doing this wherever she serves.
emails, or anything that has been reduced at any point in time in writing
will-
to this committee where legally you actually have an obligation to do so.
I'll commit to reviewing the rules of the department and and when that issue is raised to respond appropriately.
Did you have any communications with Russian officials for any reason during the campaign that have not been disclosed in public or to this committee?
I don't recall it, but I have to tell you, I cannot testify to what was said as we were standing at the Republican convention before the podium where I spoke.
My question is only as it
I don't have the
relates to your
detailed
knowledge.
memory of that.
Okay,
and
as it
I'm
relates
honest
to your
with you.
knowledge.
The
Did
best
you
of
have
mine.
any communication with any Russian businessmen or any Russian nationals?
I don't believe I had any conversation with Russian businessmen or Russian nationals.
Are you aware of
Although
any communications?
a lot of people were at the convention, it's conceivable that somebody
Sir,
came
I
up to me.
have just a few.
Well, you let me qualify it. If
Okay.
I don't qualify it, you'll accuse me of lying. So I need to be correct.
He's right. What do you want from him? Yeah, Jeff Sessions, you can hate him all you want, but they were trying to pin him for perjury here.
As best I can.
I do want you to be
and
honest.
I'm not able to be rushed this fast. It makes me nervous.
Are you aware of any communications with other Trump campaign officials and associates that they had with Russian officials or any Russian nationals?
I don't recall that
And are you aware of
at this moment.
Are you aware of any communication?
That was the funniest moment where he he starts to realize that she's just trying to get him to say something that she can say, hey, He lied. There was one of the waiters there was from Azerbaijan, which used to be part of Russia.
With any Trump officials, or did you have any communications with any officials about Russia or Russian interests in the United States before January 20th?
No, I may have had some conversations, and I think I did, with the general strategic concept of the possibility of whether or not Russia and the United States could get on a more harmonious relationship and move off the hostility. The Soviet Union did, in fact, collapse. It's really a tragic strategic event that we're not able to get along better than we
Before
are
being
today.
sworn in as Attorney General, how did you typically communicate with then candidate or President-elect Trump?
Would you repeat that?
Before you were sworn in as Attorney General, how did you typically communicate with then candidate or President-elect Trump?
I did not submit memoranda. I did not make formal presentations.
Did you ever communicate with him in writing?
I don't believe so.
And you referred to a longstanding DOJ policy. Can you tell us what policy it is you're talking about?
Well, I think most cabinet people, as the witnesses you had before you earlier, those individuals declined to comment because we're all about conversations with the president.
Sir, I'm just asking you about the DOJ policy you referred to.
Policy that goes beyond just the Attorney General.
Is that policy in writing somewhere?
I think so.
So did you not consult it before you came before?
Yeah, he should have known that, but I mean, it is known that that's the way it is.
Or this committee, knowing we would ask you questions about
Well,
it?
we talked about it. The policy is
Did
based...
you ask that it would be shown to you?
The policy is based on the principle that the president...
Sir, I'm not asking about the principle. I'm asking when you
Well, I'm
knew that you
unable
would be
to
asked
answer the
these
question.
questions and you would rely on that policy, did you not ask your staff to show you the policy that would be the basis for you refusing to answer the majority of questions that have been asked of you?
should be allowed to answer the question.
Senators.
So he's just laughing at her. It is kind of a joke to see her do this. And that's why I really do hope that Kamala Harris never gets into a position of real power, especially not become elected president, because people know that she is basically just a vengeful bitch. And when she doesn't have the power to actually execute the authority that she wants, she behaves that way. If she actually got that authority, we would probably be seeing the makings of a real police state, much worse than even the one that we're currently suffering through because of President Bush.
Will allow the chair to control the hearing. Senator Harris, let him answer.
Please do. Thank you.
We talked about it, and we talked about the real principle that's at stake. It's one that I have some appreciation for, as having spent 15 years in the Department of Justice, 12 as United States Attorney, and that principle is that the Constitution provides the head of the executive branch certain privileges, and that one of them is confidentiality of communications, and it is improper for agents of any department any departments in the executive branch to waive that privilege without a clear approval of the president.
I have asked.
And that's the situation we're in.
For a yes or no. Did you ask your
So the
staff
answer is
to
yes,
see the
I
policy?
consulted.
Did you ask your staff to see the
Senator's
policy?
time's expired.
Apparently
Senator
not.
Cornyn.
She just wastes fucking time on bullshit that nothing came of that. Do you guys ever remember anything coming of this whole Jeff Sessions bullshit? So this is the Homeland Security Chief. This is the last clip.
Separate parents from children as a method of deterrence of undocumented immigration?
I have not been directed to do that for purposes of deterrence, no.
What purpose have you been given for separating parents from their children?
So my decision has been that anyone who breaks the law will be prosecuted. If you're a parent or you're a single person or you happen to have a family, if you cross between the ports of entry, we will refer you for prosecution. You've broken U.S. law.
I also asked that I be provided with what training and procedures are being given to CBP officers as it relates to how they are instructed to carry out family separation. I've not received that information. Do you have that today?
No, you have not asked me for it, so I do not have it, but
No,
I'm
I
happy
asked
to give
him
it to
for
you.
it. Okay, so again, by the end of next week, please.
Can you explain a little more what you're looking for?
Sure. So your agency will be separating children from their parents, and I
No,
would
what we'll
assume,
be doing is prosecuting parents who've broken the law, just as we do every day in the United States of America.
I can appreciate that, but if that parent has a 4-year-old child, what do you plan on doing with that child?
The child under law goes to HHS for care and custody,
They will be separated from their parent.
just
And so
like
my
we do in the
question-
United States
so-
every day.
So they will be separated from their parent, and my question then,
So you can tell she can't keep her composure because she is just a vengeful bitch. Again, she is a vengeful bitch for no look. As a prosecutor, she did this to other people too. When somebody gets arrested, you don't get to take your kids to prison. I can tell you this because I've seen this firsthand. Okay, I don't have any kids. Let me just tell you that I know people that have been arrested and they don't get to take their kids to detention or to prison or for anything. It doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work that way, by the way. Why in God's name would you put kids together with their parents in prison?
is when you are separating children from their parents, do you have a protocol in place about how that should be done? And are you training the people who will actually remove a child from their parent on how to do that in the least traumatic way? I would hope you do train on how to do that. And so the question is, and the request has been, to give us the information about how you are training and what the protocols are for separating a child from their parent.
I'm happy to provide you with the training information.
Yeah, nothing, again, wasting the public's time. So thank you. Cindy Hyde-Smith, the only thing I can say is that she won her race, which is, the only meaning it has is that Kamala Harris is not on the Judiciary Committee anymore, even though I guess she's going to still be on a bunch of these other crap committees. So, yeah, that's about it. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, also share the video, subscribe to my second channel, Razor Ray Live Wounds, where we'll be doing live streams for the time being. And also, please subscribe to me on BitChute, subscribe to me on Minds. All the other information is below. GAB and Patreon. Tip me on the Patreon and comment when it uploads. And I'll see you guys later. And enjoy your Thursday. It's almost the end of the week, guys. I can feel it coming.